1947. Fear not, at the conclusion of our production, you will be returned to the present day as effortlessly as you arrived. To acquaint you with 1947, you should perhaps be informed of how the world looks. The X-1 airplane, the first to be called supersonic, is piloted by Chuck Yeager, who was credited with being the first person to break the sound barrier in level flight on October 14, 1947, flying at an altitude of 45,000 feet. U.S. Secretary of State George Marshall calls for a European recovery effort, popularly called the Marshall Plan. It will help to rebuild Europe devastated by World War II. In Brooklyn, Branch Rickey signs Jackie Robinson to a contract with the Dodgers in 1947. Robinson becomes the first African-American to play in modern Major League Baseball, breaking the so-called color barrier. This is not only monumental for baseball, but for all sports, as well as American race relations. The world was enthralled by a royal wedding as the wedding of Britain's Princess Elizabeth and Philip Mountbatten took place on November 20th, 1947 at Westminster Abbey in London, United Kingdom. The bride was the elder daughter of King George VI and heir presumptive to the British throne. The groom was a former Greek and Danish prince. What do things cost in 1947, you ask? Well, a loaf of bread cost 13 cents. A postage stamp remained steady at 3 cents. And gasoline is getting up toward an outrageous 15 cents per gallon. The average retail price for a brand new automobile direct from the dealer floor is a mere $1,300. And an average new home is selling for $6,600. Before you want to stay in 1947, though, to cash in on these bargains, you should first know that the median annual household income is a touch under $3,000. Born in the year 1947 will be singer-songwriter Sir Elton John. The actress who would become the world's most famous pinup girl, Farrah Fawcett. And strongman, actor, and future governor, Arnold Schwarzenegger. The hot new movies in 1947 are Gentleman's Agreement, starring Gregory Peck, Dorothy McGuire, and John Garfield. On Broadway, Tennessee Williams' A Streetcar Named Desire will open to rave reviews, and the beloved Lerner and Loewe musical, Brigadoon, begins its impressive run. In Rochester, New York, Sibley's Department Store, which was founded in 1868, celebrated its 79th year in business, while the biggest rival, McCurdy's, which began in 1901, continued to compete for dominance in the Finger Lakes region. In 1947, that newfangled invention, television, was still in its early infancy and was only in a few thousand households in the United States. In fact, most people didn't believe it would ever take hold. So, radio is still king. Families gather around the radio each night to hear the adventures of their favorite stars. Imagination abounds as the stories unfold right before the ears. Well, now you are in a radio studio as part of a live audience about to experience a weekly radio show being broadcast live. Please pay attention to the instructions of the on-air and applause lights. You will also notice the Foley artists who provide the sound effects. No, there are no computer-generated sounds in 1947. As our show begins, millions of listeners at home are tuning into our broadcast.
That, of course, was the great Bing Crosby with Silent Night. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to WBRC, and America's favorite holiday program, the Jingle Bell Radio Hour, brought to you by the Bloomfield Rotary Club and Featured Media.
Reaching readers far and near, Featured Media is here. Building ties both real and true, we can do it all for you. Feature Media, 2268111.
We have a fantastic show for you this evening as we proudly present an adaptation of a wonderful news story that is sure to become a classic, Miracle on 34th Street. Tonight's show is directed by famed and award-winning New York City and LA director, former Bloomfield resident, Mr. Greg Giacchino. The setting is the annual and famous Rochester Thanksgiving Day Parade of this year, 1947. So, without further delay, WBRC, Bloomfield Rotary, and Featured Media present Miracle on 34th Street.
Here we come a-caroling among the leaves so green. Here we come a-wandering so fair to be seen. Love and joy come to you, and to you good Christmas too. And God bless you and send you a happy new year. And God send you a happy new year.
He is simply wonderful, Mrs. Walker. Just look at him on that float. Absolutely the most realistic Santa Claus we've ever had. Why, he didn't even need the beard or the getup. Where on earth did you find him?
He found me, I suppose. I helped the other Santa stumble off the float and into a cab. I turned around and there he was. He had apparently been chastising our Luscia Claus, telling him that he's given Santa a bad name, disappointing all the children.
And to think, Saint Nick, intoxicated.
Breath that would have knocked out over 8 tiny reindeer. Nose redder than Rudolph's.
I shudder to think if Mr. Sibley had seen him.
Even worse, Mrs. Shellhammer, what if the folks from McCurdy's got wind of it? Competition between our stores is tough enough. They would have had a field day with Sibley's having a drunk as Santa Claus.
Oh, I can't even imagine. Ouch! Hey, look, the parade's starting. Would you like to go to the VIP section of the reviewing stand? Just stand at the curb or watch from the 6th floor office window. It's a terrific view from up there.
Oh, I think that I'm going to pass, Mrs. Shellhammer. I've seen enough. It's time for me to relax, so I'm going to go home. My apartment is just around the corner.
Suit yourself. I'll see you tomorrow, Mrs. Walker. And once again, congratulations on finding the best Santa Claus in Sibley history.
And God bless you and send you a happy new year. And God send you a happy new year.
Oh, it certainly is a wonderful parade, don't you think so, Susan? Oh my, wow! Just look at that giant clown marching down the street.
Mr. Gailey, it's just a balloon. Everyone knows giants aren't real.
Okay, well, not now, maybe. Oh, but in olden days.
Really, Mr. Gailey? And you, a lawyer?
Well, what about the giant that Jet killed at the top of the beanstalk?
That's a fairy tale. I have to agree with my mother. Fairy tales are silly, and I don't think clowns are terribly funny either. Though I do enjoy watching everyone march down the street in the parade.
Come in.
Good afternoon, Mr. Gailey. I'm Susan's mother. My maid said...
Oh, hello, Mother. I'm watching the parade. Mr. Gailey invited me.
Hello, darling.
Susie's told me quite a bit about you, Mrs. Walker.
She's told me quite a lot about you too, Mr. Gailey. The man in the front apartment who hasn't introduced himself to her mother yet?
Well, this was all part of the plan, Mrs. Walker. I've been hoping to meet you. The name's Fred Gailey.
Well, at least you're frank, Fred Gailey.
Look, here comes Santa Claus.
Oh, don't even mention the name.
Well, why not?
That Santa Claus, you see, is a very last-minute substitute.
But why?
Remember the way Mr. Johnson was at the last New Year's party?
Yes, he was as drunk as a skunk. Oh my, not Santa Claus.
Now, I see that you don't believe in Santa Claus either.
That's right, she never has.
Well, I don't know. It sure seems like he's making his way down the avenue, even as we speak.
Clever, Mr. Gailey, but...
Oh, here's the Santa float now. Oh, Mother, he's so much more realistic than any other Santa you've had.
Yes, he is. Not bad for a last-minute fill-in, even if I do say so myself.
Mother, I've been thinking. It's Thanksgiving, and there are only 2 of us. Couldn't we invite Mr. Gailey to join us for dinner?
Well,
Oh, please, don't bother on my account. I'll just have a sandwich or something.
But we have such a big turkey. Please, Mother, please.
Well...
He was nice enough to let me watch the parade. How was that?
Shh, don't give it away.
That would be fine, Susan. Dinner's at 3, Mr. Gailey. Come on, Susan, we should be leaving now.
Okay, Mother, that's the end of the parade anyway. Unless you count the guys cleaning up the horse poop, and that doesn't excite me at all.
Good King Wenceslas looked out on the feast of Stephen, from his snow-lit roundabout, deep and crisp and even.
You know, Mr. Kringle.
Oh, call me Chris, please, Alfred. Oh, we're co-workers after all.
Thank you, Chris. That is a beautiful Santa suit.
Why, thank you, Alfred. I've had it for many, many years. I'm rather proud of it.
It's sure not like the cheesy one the store provides.
Well, clothes make the man, you know.
Well, even the store's costume is better than the one I have.
You have your own Santa Claus suit, Alfred? Why is that?
Well, I play Santa for the little kids at the orphanage. I love playing Santa.
Oh, that's wonderful. Why do you love playing Santa?
Well, I love seeing the looks on the kids' faces. They get so excited and so full of joy and wonder. It really shows me what Christmas is all about, you know? Kids and giving and, well, joy.
You know what, Alfred? I'm sure that you are a great Santa Claus. Perhaps next year you can be the Sibley Santa Claus.
Oh, do you really think so, Chris?
Oh,
it's
no
my
doubt.
dream.
No doubt about it.
Brightly shone the moon that night, though the frost was cruel.
Come in.
Mrs. Walker, I have to say it again. Your Santa Claus was stupendous.
Well, thank you, Mrs. Shellhammer.
Mr. Sibley himself wants him to be our premier Santa Claus in the toy department.
Sure, that would be fine. Can you take care of hiring him?
Oh, I already have. He's a natural-born salesman. I can just feel it. Just a minute, I'll bring him in. He's in the hall with Alfred. Alfred, can you bring Mr. Kringle in here, please?
Sure thing, Mrs. Shellhammer.
Good morning.
Chris, I believe that you already know Mrs. Walker.
Oh, indeed I do.
We're so happy to have you with us, Chris. Now, before you go to the toy department, here's a list of toys that we have to push.
Oh?
You know, things that we currently have overstocked. Now, you'll find that a great number of children will be undecided as to what they want for Christmas. And when that happens, these are the ones that Sibley's wants off the shelf. Do you understand?
Oh, I certainly do.
Fine, that's fine. Now, take the list, and Alfred here will show you to your throne in the toy room. He'll be your gnome. Your elf.
I'm really looking forward to working with you, Mr. Chris. You can follow me.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it too, Alfred. You know, Mrs. Walker, Alfred is a fine lad. He's always been on my nice list. He'd be a fine Santa for you someday.
And don't you forget, you're working for Sibley's now.
Jolly old St. Nicholas, lean your ear this way.
Santa, this is Mortimer. Up you go, Mortimer, up on Santa's lap.
Yeah, of course. Hello, Mortimer. Oh, you've been a very good boy this year.
Are you really Santa Claus?
Of course I am. Last Christmas, I brought you that genuine Norm Van Brocklin football and that genuine Yogi Berra catcher's mitt that you wanted so badly.
Hey, that's right. Thanks, Santa.
So, what do you want for Christmas this year, Mortimer?
I want a fire engine with a real hose that squirts real wet water, and I won't do it in the house. I'll only do it in the backyard. I promise.
Well, that seems reasonable. Okay, then. You promise no squirting inside. I promise you'll get your fire engine.
You see, Mama? I told you he'd get me one.
Fine. That's just dandy. You wait right over there, Mortimer, where I can see you. Mama wants to thank Santa.
You have quite a nice boy there, madam.
What is the matter with you?
Now. What's the trouble?
This kid wants a fire engine, but there isn't one to be had anywhere in the whole city. Sibley's hasn't got one. Sears hasn't got any. Nobody has any. My feet are killing me, and you say, okay, he gets a fire engine.
Well, because you can get those fire engines at McCurdy's, right here in Midtown. Only $4.50. Oh, it's a wonderful bargain.
At McCurdy's?
Well, yes.
And how would you know that?
Oh, I follow the toy market very closely.
Sibley's is sending people to other stores? McCurdy's, no less?
Well, yes.
Are you kidding?
Whether Sibley's or someone else sells a toy really doesn't matter. The important thing is to make the children happy. Don't you feel that way?
Who, me?
Oh, yes.
Oh, I get it. Only I didn't know Sibley's did. Well, nice to meet you, Santa.
Oh, it was very nice to meet you. Oh, hello, Faith.
Oh boy, the line is getting longer by the minute. Step right up, right this way to see Santa Claus.
I'm looking for Mrs. Shellhammer. Are you Mrs. Shellhammer?
Why, yes, I am.
The sales lady said I should speak with you. I just wanted to congratulate you and Sibley's on this wonderful new stunt you're pulling. Imagine the Sibley Santa sending folks to McCurdy's to make sure the children get what they asked for.
McCurdy's?
Sibley's is really putting the true spirit of Christmas ahead of the commercialism.
McCurdy's?
From now on, I'm going to be a regular Sibley's customer. All right, Mortimer, let's go.
McCurdy's? Mrs. Walker? Doris?
And here's the toy department, Mr. Gailey. Oh, look, it's a Sibley's Christmas chorus. Can we sit and listen for a while?
Why, of course, Susan. That's a wonderful idea.
Okay, Christmas chorus, are you ready? If you'd like to sing with us, please do. We're starting off with Winter Wonderland. Sleigh bells ring, are you listening? In the lane, snow is glistening. A beautiful sight, we're happy tonight, walking in a winter wonderland. Gone away is the bluebird, here to stay is a new bird, to sing a love song as we go along, walking in a winter wonderland. In there we can build a snowman, and pretend that he is Parson Brown. He'll say, are you married? We'll say, no, man, but you can do the job when you're in town. Later on we'll conspire as we dream by the fire, to face unafraid the plans that we made, walking in a winter wonderland. Very good! All right. Now we are dreaming of a white Christmas. I'm dreaming of a white Christmas. listen, and children, listen to hear sleigh bells in the snow. I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, with every Christmas card I write. May your days be merry and bright, and may all your Christmases be white.
I'm thinking next year some of you should come up here. All right, last one, our favorite. Here comes Santa Claus. Here
Come Santa Claus, here comes Santa Claus, right down Santa Claus Lane. Vixen and Blitzen and all his reindeers blowing all the rain. Bells are ringing, children singing, all is merry and bright. So hang your stockings and say your prayers, 'cause Santa Claus comes tonight. Here comes Santa Claus, here comes Santa Claus, right down Santa Claus Lane. He's got a bag that's filled with toys for boys and girls again. Hear those sleigh bells jingle, jangle, oh what a beautiful sight. So jump in bed and cover your head, 'cause Santa Claus comes tonight.
Wow, that was great. Now you certainly know all about Sibley's store, don't you, Susan?
Well, that's because my mother works here. But I still think it's silly bringing me here to see Santa Claus.
Well, maybe when you talk to him, you might.
Okay, Mr. Gailey, I'm certainly willing to try. I am open-minded and logical.
Santa, this is...
Susan, am I right?
Did Alfred tell you? Well, we haven't been properly introduced. And you know my name. What's yours?
Mine? I'm Kris Kringle. I'm Santa Claus.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you don't believe that, huh?
You see, my mother's Mrs. Walker.
Oh.
Don't you mean ho, ho, ho?
Yes, that too. You are a delightful young lady.
Thank you. And I must say, you are the best looking Santa Claus I've ever seen.
Oh, really?
Your beard, for instance. It doesn't have one of those things that goes over your ears.
Well, that's because it's real. Just like I'm really Santa Claus. Now, go ahead, pull on it.
I certainly admire your commitment.
Oh,
Oh my goodness, it is real.
oh yes, indeed. And now, since you know so much, you must have anticipated my next question. What would you like me to bring you for Christmas?
Nothing, thank you. Whatever I want, my mother will get. Within
Oh.
reason, if it's sensible and doesn't cost too much.
Oh?
That's quite right, Susan.
Oh, hello, Mother.
Hello, Mr. Gailey. Chris, the line is around the store. We'll let you get back to it.
Oh, thank you. And good day. It was wonderful to meet you, Susan.
Goodbye, Santa.
Hello. Well, the explanation for all this is very simple. Your maid's mother sprained her ankle. She had to go home, so she asked me to bring Susie down to you. And as long as we were here, I figured we might as well say hello to Santa Claus.
He has a real beard, Mother.
Susan, would you please go straight up to my office and wait for me there?
Yes, Mother.
I shouldn't have brought Susie to see Santa, is that it?
Now you're making me feel completely heartless.
I'm sorry.
Don't you see? I tell Susan that Santa Claus is just a myth, and you show her a very convincing old man with real whiskers. Whom is she to believe?
I see.
Susan's father and I divorced when she was very young. I have learned that the world is harsh. I am teaching my daughter the same lessons early and protecting her from letting her dreams run wild. If you don't believe in fairy tales and fantasy, you can never be hurt or disillusioned when they invariably don't come true.
Who are we talking about, Mrs. Walker?
Sharing one Thanksgiving dinner does not provide you the right to offer unsolicited advice. I must ask you to kindly let me raise my daughter as I see fit. The store is going to close soon. Good evening, Mr. Gailey. I'm sure you will steer our paths towards crossing again soon.
Don't you tell a single soul what I'm going to say.
Come in.
You wanted to see me, Mrs. Walker.
Oh, yes, come in, Chris, please. Chris, I appreciate you taking on your persona so fully, but I am personally choosing to raise my daughter with a more pragmatic view of the world. And I think your convincing costume and demeanor has confused her somewhat. She has been bringing you up a lot in the last few days, and I would prefer, well, gratefully, really, if you please tell Susan that you're not really Santa Claus and that there actually is no such person.
Oh, but Mrs. Walker, not only is there such a person, but here I am.
You misunderstand. I want you to tell her the truth. Now, what is your real name?
Kris Kringle.
I mean your real name.
Oh, but I have a lot of names. Cinderklaus, St. Nicholas, Bears Noel, Father Christmas, Bobo Natale, even La Befana.
Very well. I have your employment card right here. I'll look it up there. Name, Kris Kringle. Address, Brooks Home for Elderly Gentlemen, Canandaigua, New York.
You may call the home if you care to confirm that, Mrs. Walker. Ask for Dr. Pierce.
Place of birth, North Pole. Now really.
Why, I believe you doubt me, Mrs. Walker.
Why aren't you at the North Pole now?
Well, it's awfully cold there, and even colder than here in western New York. But I'm not as young as I used to be. I wanted the winter more southerly.
Rochester, Southerly.
Well, it's all in the perspective, you know. And I have a lot of little helpers to handle the day-to-day operations.
And this tops everything. Next of kin.
Oh, that.
Mrs. Claus, no first name. Then you list Dasher, Dancer, Prancer, and Vixen. I'm sorry to have to do this, Mr.
Kringle.
But the Santa Claus that we had 2 years ago is back in town, and I feel that we owe it to him to...
Have I done something wrong?
No. It's just that we feel... Oh, excuse me. Hello?
This is Mrs. Shellhammer. Mrs. Walker, drop whatever it is you're doing. Mr. Sibley wants to see us immediately.
Oh, I'll be right up. I'm afraid I have to be abrupt. I have to see Mr. Sibley. You'll be paid for the full week. I'll send your check to the address on your card. I have to go see Mr. Sibley. I'll be back shortly.
Oh, Christmas tree, how lovely are your branches. Oh, Christmas tree, how lovely are your branches.
Come right in, Mrs. Walker, Mrs. Shellhammer.
Thank you, Mr. Sibley.
Please, sit down. How about this new policy you two initiated?
What policy, Mr. Sibley?
Sibley's Santa Claus sending customers to McCurdy's.
I can explain everything, Mr. Sibley.
You don't have to explain a thing. Just look at my desk. 42 telegrams and over 300 phone calls. Grateful parents expressing undying gratitude and loyalty to Sibley's department store. Genius, pure genius.
Why, you don't say.
And from now on, not only will our Santa Claus continue in this manner, but we will instruct every single salesperson in the entire store.
You mean that if we haven't got what the customer asked for, we're to...
Yes, we're to send him wherever he can get it. No high pressure or conniving to a customer to convincing them trying to take something they don't really want.
I think that's wonderful, Mr. Sibley.
From now on, Sibley's will be known as the helpful store, the friendly store, the store with a heart, the store that places public service ahead of profits, and consequently will make more profits than ever. As for you, Mrs. Walker, Mrs. Shellhammer, you'll find a more practical expression of my gratitude in your Christmas envelopes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
And tell that wonderful Santa Claus I won't forget him either. Matter of fact, I'll tell him myself in the morning.
Yes, indeed, Mr. Sibley.
Good night, Mrs. Walker. Good night, Mrs. Shellhammer. Great work.
Good night, Mr. Sibley.
And thank you again, sir. Imagine, a bonus.
Yes.
What's the matter with you? Why the long face?
I just fired him.
Who?
Santa Claus?
Oh, no, you couldn't have.
But I did. He's crazy, Mrs. Shellhammer. He really thinks he is Santa Claus.
I don't care if he thinks he's the Easter Bunny. Find him.
Don't you understand? That old man with the nice white whiskers insists that he is Santa Claus. He's out of his mind. What if he should have a fit or something? I've got to tell Mr. Sibley.
Yes, but maybe he's only a little crazy. Anyway, you can't be sure until he's examined. We'll send him to that Sawyer woman in personnel. She's paid to examine employees, isn't she?
That's a good idea. Our Santa Claus certainly has started something. He's waiting in my office. I'll have him see Mrs. Sawyer first thing in the morning.
Your branch is green in summer's glow, and evergreen in winter's snow.
Thanks for waiting, Mr. Kringle. I have some good news. We have found another position for our former Santa, so we'd like you to continue with us.
Oh, that's wonderful, Mrs. Walker. Oh, that's mighty good news.
So you'll stay on then?
Oh, of course, Mrs. Walker. You see, this is quite an opportunity for me. For the past 50 years or so, I've been getting more and more worried about Christmas. You see, we all seem to have gotten so busy trying to beat the other fella, trying to make things go faster, look shinier, and cost less, that, well, Christmas and I have been getting lost in the shuffle.
Oh, I don't think so. Christmas is still Christmas.
Oh, Christmas isn't just a day. It's a frame of mind. And that's what's been changing. That's why I'm glad I'm here. Maybe I can do something about it. Oh, and I'm glad I met you and your daughter. You two are a test case for me.
We are?
Oh, yes. You're sort of the whole challenge in miniature. You see, I'm not just a whimsical figure that wears a charming suit and affects a jolly demeanor, you know. I'm a symbol. I'm a symbol of the human ability to suppress the selfish, hateful tendencies that rules a major portion of our lives. And if you can't believe, then you can't accept anything on faith. Then you are doomed to a life dominated by doubt. If I can win you over, then there's still hope. If not, well, I guess I'm through. But I'm warning you, I don't give up easily. Well, good night, Mrs. Walker.
Good night, Mr. Kringle. Oh, Mr. Kringle, first thing in the morning, would you report to Mrs. Sawyer's office?
Sawyer?
Yes, she will give you a little examination. We do it with all our employees.
The psychological examination.
Well, yeah.
Oh, I don't mind. I've taken dozens of them. Haven't failed one yet. Know them by heart. Well, good night.
Christmas Eve is coming soon, now you dear old man.
Enter.
Mrs. Sawyer, Mrs. Walker asked me to come up here and see you.
Yes, come in. Mr. Kringle, is it? Well, you can take that beard off now that you're off the clock.
Well, that would be rather difficult to do, well, as it's attached to me.
Is it? Huh. Why do you carry the cane?
Oh, I always carry a cane, Mrs. Sawyer. Well, that is when I'm not in uniform. I carved this cane out of a runner from one of my old sleighs.
What's that?
A large sled pulled by animals, but that's not really important right now, is it?
No, I mean, why? Do you need it to walk? Are you unsteady on your feet?
No, not at all. It's a gentleman's accoutrement, a cane with a fine, solid silver top.
And you say that you're Santa Claus.
Oh, that's the name on my stockings.
Who was the first president of the United States?
Oh, I must warn you, I'm a bit of a trivia ace. It was George Washington. Now, I have one for you. Who was the vice president under James Monroe?
I'm conducting this investigation.
The answer is Daniel D. Tompkins. He was on the nice list. Most years anyway.
What hand am I holding up?
Right hand.
And how many fingers do you see?
3. Oh, dear, dear. You bite your nails. You're a rather nervous woman, aren't you, Mrs. Sawyer? Tell me, do you get enough sleep?
My personal habits are of no concern of you. Now, stand up now. Feet together, arms extended.
Muscular coordination test. Oh, I've taken dozens of these tests, Mrs. Sawyer. Mrs. Sawyer, are you happy at home?
What? That will be all, Mr. Kringle. This examination is over. And it may interest you to know that I have been happily married for the past 22 years.
Oh, delighted to hear it. Well, goodbye, Mrs. Sawyer.
Get Mrs. Walker on the phone.
Whisper what you bring to me. Tell me if you can.
Brooks Home for Elderly Gentlemen, this is Dr. Pierce.
Hello, doctor. This is Doris Walker from Sibley's Department Store. I am calling to discuss one of your patients, Chris Kringle.
Of course. What would you like to discuss?
Well, obviously he's deluded, so...
Well, yes, but I've always found it to be a delusion for good. He only wants to be friendly and helpful.
Mrs. Sawyer in our personnel department suggests his manner might become aggressive. They mentioned his cane and...
Mrs. Walker, I assure you, Chris Kringle has no maniacal tendencies.
But if there's the slightest possibility of his causing any trouble...
What sort of trouble?
All that needs to happen is a police officer asks him his name, and he says Chris Kringle, and Sibley's Santa Claus lands up in the psychopathic ward.
Well, you can prevent that very simply. Now, there must be someone there at the store who could rent him a room. Then they could both come to work together. I'd just as soon he avoided that long bus ride to Rochester anyway.
You mean sort of take custody of him?
I do.
Do you think that Mr. Kringle would agree to that?
Oh, I'm sure he'll agree.
Well, in that case, now let me see. Who do I know who could rent him a room?
Up on the housetop, reindeer paws, up jumps good old Santa Claus.
I'm very glad you're going to live next door, Mr. Gailey.
Oh, why?
Because I like seeing you. You're nice to talk to.
Oh, and I like you too, Susan. Oh, what a fine young man that Mr. Gailey is, huh? Just think, giving someone who's practically a stranger a place to live.
He did it because Mother asked him to.
Oh, she did? Well, I am very grateful. So tell me, what did you do in school today?
We were learning on multiplication and division tables this month.
Oh, good, good. Any games?
Yes, a very silly game, too. We played zoo. Each child was supposed to be an animal.
Oh, that sounds marvelous. You were pretending.
Pretending is exactly what makes the game so silly.
Well, of course, in order to play those games, you need imagination. You know what imagination is, don't you, Susan?
Sure, imagination is when you see things that aren't really there.
Well, yes, but it's more than that. The imagination is a wonderful place, a marvelous place. Now, you know the French nation.
Yes.
And the British nation.
Of course, we learned all about Europe in school.
Excellent. Well, mademoiselle, even farther away than Europe, believe it or not, is the Imagine Nation. Oh, a very interesting place, too. And luckily, it's quicker to get to than an elevator ride to the top of the Empire State Building. How would you like to be able to make snowballs in the summertime?
What?
Or see the Statue of Liberty dance? Or better yet, be the Statue of Liberty making snowballs in the morning, but by noon flying south with a flock of geese.
Well, it sounds like it might be enjoyable, but...
How do you get to the imagination? Well, I'm glad you asked. It's very simple, really. For starters, next time they want to play zoo, you can be a bear.
A bear.
You're right, of course. That's a silly idea. It's clear as day that you're 10 times more monkey.
A monkey? I don't know how to be a monkey.
Oh, it's easy. I'll show you. When I find occasion to turn monkey, I found it's best to start with the voice. You've been to the zoo. Monkeys have a chatter like this.
Like this? Ooh, 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 ah, ah, ah.
That's fine, fine. Now put your hand over your head and start scratching, see? That's it. Excellent, Susan. That's as fine a bit of scratching as I've ever seen. And now when monkeys get really excited, they start jumping.
Jumping?
Yes, of course. That's what monkeys do. They jump and they chatter and they scratch.
Ooh, 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 ah, ah.
Yes, beautiful. You're ready to swing through the jungle. Now, Susan, I wanted to ask you about Christmas. I know you said you didn't want anything, but Christmas presents are my business, and you're my host and my friend. There must be something you would like.
Well, I've certainly thought about something, Mr. Kringle.
Oh, you have? Well, what is it? Tell me.
It's right here on the table.
Oh?
I tore this page out of a magazine. It's a picture of a house.
Oh, that's what you want, is it? A dollhouse. Colonial architecture.
Not a dollhouse, a real house.
Oh, a real house?
Yes, and if you're really Santa Claus, you can get it for me.
Oh, now, wait a minute, Susie. What would you possibly do with such a big house?
Live in it with my mother, and have a backyard with a big tree to put a swing on, and have a garden and a... Oh, well, why even discuss it?
Susie, could I keep this picture just in case?
I guess so.
Well, thank you, dear, thank you. Well, Mr. Gailey's waiting for me. Good night, monkey.
Good night, Mr. Kringle. Ooh, 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 ah, ah, ah.
I hope that you'll be comfortable enough here on the couch, Mr. Kringle.
Oh, you're very kind, really. Tell me, Mr. Gailey, what is it that you just do for a living?
Oh, I'm a lawyer. Howard and Fine, attorneys at law.
And you like living here in Rochester?
Well, yeah, it's convenient. But someday I'd like to get a place in Ontario or Livingston County.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, not a big house. Just one of those junior partner deals, maybe somewhere around Lima or Avon.
Oh, one of those little colonial houses.
Yeah, a little colonial house. That would be swell.
Oh, good. You're quite fond of Mrs. Walker, aren't you?
Oh, sure, but a lot of good it does me. You know, she lives in a cast iron shell that's just a little difficult to penetrate.
Well, perhaps we can find some way for that shell to open a bit.
Oh, and how's that?
Well, I'm sure I don't know yet, but 'tis the season.
Oh, well, you let me know when you know. Should I turn out the lights?
Please.
Wait, now just a minute.
Yes?
I'm not going to get cheated out of this. You know, my entire life I've wondered about it, and now I'm going to finally find out. Tell me, does Santa Claus sleep with his whiskers outside or inside the covers?
Outside, by all means. The cold air makes them grow.
Oh, thank you very much. Good night, Chris.
Good night, Fred.
It came upon a midnight air, that glorious sound of old, from angels bending near to earth to touch their harps of gold.
You're tuned in to the Jingle Bell Radio Hour, brought to you by the Bloomfield Rotary Club and Featured Media.
Reaching readers far and near, Featured Media is here. Building ties both real and true, we can do it all for you. Featured Media, 2268111.
There will be a brief pause pause in the tale so that our studio audience can take a break to catch breaths, stretch legs, and visit our concession stand. We invite the millions of listeners at home to do the same thing. We'll be back in 20 minutes with the conclusion of Miracle on 34th Street.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Delicious things to eat. The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drink to the lobby. Candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby.
Welcome back to WBRC's Jingle Bell Radio Hour and the enchanting conclusion of Miracle on 34th Street, brought to you by Bloomfield Rotary Club and Featured Media.
Reaching readers far and near, Featured Media is here. Building ties both real and true, we can do it all for you. Featured Media, 2268111.
Yes, come in.
Hello, Mr. Sibley.
Oh, come in, Mrs. Walker, come in.
Thank you, Mr. Sibley. I just heard some big news.
You have? Well, let me tell you something very big, very big. Our policy of being nice to our customers has tripled our sales. Now, what do you think of that?
That's wonderful, Mr. Sibley, and McCurdy's thinks it's wonderful too.
McCurdy's?
McCurdy's is adopting the same policy.
Is that so? Stealing our kindness. That lying, conniving.
And it gives me an idea. As long as McCurdy's is doing the same thing, why not take some pictures for the newspapers?
Pictures?
Yes, you and Mr. McCurdy shaking hands.
Shaking hands? Sibley and McCurdy?
Well, yes.
Yes, why not? With our Santa Claus. It's another great idea you've got there, Mrs. Walker. Sibley and McCurdy shaking hands. All right, that's enough pictures, gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Come on, Sibley. Now we'll go over to my store and get some really good pictures.
Now, just a minute. I have something here for Santa Claus. Here you are, Mr. Kringle. A check in appreciation for all you've done.
Oh, Mr. Sibley. Why, that's most kind of you.
Huh, so generous, Sibley. That's quite a check. What will you do with it, Mr. Kringle?
Well, I have a friend, Dr. Pierce. He needs a new x-ray machine.
Buy the machine through the store. 10% discount.
Nonsense. Come over to McCurdy's. We'll furnish it at cost.
Keep it up, gentlemen. I'll buy my friend a whole new hospital.
Deck the halls with boughs of holly, fa la 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 la. 'Tis the season to be jolly, fa la 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 la.
How did the pictures turn out, Chris?
Oh, fine, Alfred, just fine. Hey, how about a game of checkers during lunch?
Not today, Chris. I don't feel so good.
What's the matter, Alfred?
Well, I've really started to love this job, working with you and helping the kids get in the spirit and all. I was feeling like a genuine Christmas elf. Well, Mrs. Sawyer called me in to talk about it, and she says that's very bad. Psychologically, it's all wrong.
Wrong? To be nice to children?
Well, she says guys who play Santa Claus do it because when they was young, they must have done something bad, and now they're doing something they think is good to make up for it, see? It's what she calls a guilt complex.
Alfred, what else has she found wrong with you?
Oh, nothing much, just that I hate my father. I didn't know it. I didn't know it, but she says I do. Pop was as confused as I was when I told him.
Excuse me.
Hey, ain't you gonna have lunch?
Later. Right now, I have an appointment with Mrs. Sawyer.
God rest ye merry gentlemen, let nothing you dismay.
What do you mean breaking into my office like this?
Are you a licensed psychiatrist?
What business is that of yours?
I have a great deal of respect for psychiatry and a great contempt for meddling amateurs that go around practicing it.
Now just shut up.
You ought to be horsewhipped, filling Alfred up with made-up complexes and phobias.
I think I'm better equipped to judge that than you.
Just because Alfred wants to be kind to children, you tell him he has a guilt complex. Only the most foolish of people mistake kindness for weakness.
Having the same delusion you couldn't possibly understand. And don't you wave that cane at me.
Either you stop analyzing Alfred, or I'll go straight to Mr. Sibley and tell him what a contemptible fraud you are.
You get out of here this minute, or I will have security throw you out.
Oh, security. How brave. You cowardly little weasel.
Get out of my office.
Don't touch me. Stop pushing there all.
That's a family heirloom that you deliberately smashed with your cane.
Good day, Mrs. Sawyer.
Miss Prong, get me the police. Get me Mrs. Walker.
Howard and Fine, attorneys at law. This is Fred Gailey.
Fred, it's Doris. We have a big problem. Chris deliberately destroyed the personal property of a fellow employee. He smashed a valuable vase.
Wait, what? Who? Chris?
Doesn't sound entirely like the woman didn't deserve it. Truth be told, I've always found her a bit of a cheap clown, but Chris didn't deny it. She asked him to leave and he smashed it with his cane. Woman's name is Sawyer. She called in the straitjackets. I was afraid this would happen.
Oh no, I'll get down there right away.
You'll take the case just like that?
Well, I'm not gonna let Santa spend his Christmas in a padded room.
Oh, tidings of comfort and joy, comfort and joy. Oh, tidings of comfort and joy.
Hello, Chris.
Hello, Fred.
Chris, I've been speaking to the doctors. They said they've given you some tests?
Oh, yes, same old tests.
Except this time you failed to pass them. Now, Chris, I think you deliberately failed them. Why would you do that?
Why? Because I had great hopes, Fred. I had a feeling Mrs. Walker was beginning to believe in me, and now I discover she was only humoring me the whole time. It was a setup. One call, and here I am in the rubber room.
Oh, but this wasn't her idea at all. Mrs. Sawyer had you sent up here to the Rochester Psychiatric Center before Doris even knew about it.
But why didn't she come and explain things?
Oh, because she didn't want to hurt you.
Oh. Well, it's not just Mrs. Walker. Well, now take Mrs. Sawyer. She's contemptible, dishonest, deceitful. Yet she's out there and I'm in here. Well, I know I don't see much of it but once a year, but if this is the way the world is becoming, I want none of it.
It's not like you to think so selfishly, Chris.
Oh, really? Why not? What do you mean?
What happens to you matters to a lot of other people. To all the kids who believe in you, and to people like Susie, who are just beginning to. People need someone pure to believe in. I believe in you. I believe in what you stand for. Chris, all of the children, everyone. Don't let us down.
Well, Fred, maybe you're right. Of course you're right. I ought to be ashamed of myself. Come on, let's get out of here.
Oh, now wait a minute. You flunked your mental examination, but good.
Oh, yes, so I did. Well, anyway, you're a lawyer. Fix it.
Hey, look, I can't just wave my hands.
I won't let you down. You won't let me down.
Chris, now take it easy. Look, there'll have to be a hearing. if you're going to be committed for violent tendencies, that has to happen before a judge.
Well,
Well, if I can do anything at all, it's going to have to be in the courtroom. Now sit tight, Chris. I'll think of something.
Jingle bells, jingle all the way.
You sent for me, Mr. Sibley.
I certainly did, Sawyer. I brought my family to the toy department to see our Santa Claus. The best Santa Claus in Sibley's history. And what do I find when we get there? Our Santa Claus isn't there. He's delivering presents in the funny farm.
Yes, Mr. Sibley.
Because he's a lunatic?
Yes, sir, a lunatic.
Lunatic my foot. Now you listen to me, Mrs. Sawyer. You get this case dropped right away or you'll have a room full of smashed things to carry on your way to the unemployment line.
But it's out of my hands. Mr. Kringle goes to court in the morning.
Well, just see that he's back in the toy department by afternoon. Now get out of here.
Yes, sir, Mr. Sibley, sir.
Go.
Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Hey!
Mr. Gailey. Oh, Mr. Gailey.
Yes?
Yes, I was just speaking to the court clerk, and he said that you represent Mr. Kringle. My name is Mrs. Sawyer. I'm here to represent Mr. Sibley.
Oh, then I'll see you in court.
Oh, no, I'm not an attorney. What I wanted to speak to you about is that Mr. Sibley would like to drop the whole case right now. You see, we're most anxious to avoid any publicity.
No publicity, huh?
Correct. No publicity.
Well, now that's very interesting.
A quiet arrangement. Yes, wonderful.
You know something, Mrs. Sawyer? You've just given me the idea I've been searching for. One heck of an idea.
Oh, good. Good. Very good.
If I'm going to win this case, I'm going to have public opinion and plenty of it. And publicity's just the way to do it. Well, we'll see you tomorrow in court.
But, Mr. Gailey!
Jingle bells, jingle all the way.
Look at these newspapers, Chris. Here, Times Union. Doctors doubt sanity of Santa who launched Goodwill campaign.
oh my.
Democrat and Chronicle. Sibley Santa Claus to have lunacy hearing.
What's this one?
Oh, the Genesee Valley Penny Saver.
Is Chris Kringle crazy? Court case coming? Oh, kiddies cry calamity.
Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh.
Please be seated.
Mr. Kringle, I'm District Attorney O'Mara. Now, Mr. Kringle, this is not a trial. It's just a hearing. So you don't have to answer any questions that you don't want to. Do you understand that?
Of course, Mr. O'Mara.
Excellent. Now then, where do you live?
Well, to my understanding, that's the point of this hearing, isn't it?
Well then, let me cut to the chase. Mr. Kringle, do you believe that you are Santa Claus?
Of course I do.
The state rests its case, Your Honor.
Well, Mr. Gailey,
Your Honor, Mr. District Attorney O'Mara contends my client is not sane because he believes he's Santa Claus.
An entirely logical conclusion. Anyone who thinks he's Santa Claus is crazy.
Your Honor, you believe yourself to be Judge Elliott, yet no one questions your sanity because you are Judge Elliott, do they?
Mr. Kringle is the subject of this sanity hearing, not I.
Of course, Your Honor. Well, I intend to prove that Mr. Kringle is Santa Claus.
Mr. O'Mara, I thought you said this was a cut and dried sanity hearing.
I thought it was, Your Honor.
Well, in view of Mr. Gailey's statement, I'll have to review the entire background of this case. Court's adjourned until tomorrow morning.
I saw 3 ships come sailing in on Christmas Day, on Christmas Day. I saw 3 ships come sailing in on Christmas Day in the morning.
Oh, hello, Doris. I'm sorry I'm late, but get ready. We are going to celebrate tonight.
Ooh, champagne. What are we celebrating?
Well, didn't you read the papers? Santa's mouthpiece drops bombshell in New York Supreme Court.
Oh, Fred, you're not really serious about this, are you? He's possibly the most kind and generous man that I have ever met, but you can't possibly prove that Kris Kringle is Santa Claus.
Well, you saw Mr. Sibley and Mr. McCurdy shake hands. That wasn't possible either.
What does your firm have to say about it? Howard, and Fine, attorneys at law.
Well, that I've jeopardized their prestige, and either I drop this impossible case or they'll drop me.
You see?
So I beat him to it. I quit.
Fred, you threw away a career because of a sentimental whim?
Well, I'll just open my own office.
And what kind of clients will you get?
Well, probably a lot of people like Chris. Good guys who are being pushed around. That's the only law worth practicing anyway. I can do this. Doris, don't you have any faith in me at all?
It's not a question of faith, it's common sense.
Faith is believing in things when common sense tells you not to. It's not just Chris that's on trial. It's everything he stands for. Human kindness and love and dignity and loyalty and believing in each other, believing in yourself. I can't turn my back on all of that.
Oh, Fred, listen. We've seen a lot of each other the last couple of weeks. I become fond of you. We've started to make plans, and then you do this. Go on an idealistic binge, throw away your security, and then you expect me to be happy about it.
And I expect too much. Is that it? Well, that's that, I guess. Good night, Doris.
Hello? Yes, this is Mr. O'Mara. Well, can it wait till tomorrow? He did... What? Who's been subpoenaed? Well, how do you think I feel about it? I'll be there shortly.
Who was that, dear?
Mr. Sibley has been subpoenaed.
Oh, my.
And that Gailey called the reporters. They'll make me look like a sadistic monster who likes to drown pussycats and tear wings off butterflies.
Quiet, dear. Shh. Mortimer's still awake. And it'd just break his heart if he knew what his father's doing.
That he's doing his job as the district attorney?
Well, I'm not so sure. I don't agree with the defense side. Mr. Kringle looks like a very nice old man, and he was wonderful when Mortimer sat on his lap. I don't see why you have to continue persecuting him.
I'm not persecuting him, I'm prosecuting him. Look, I like the old man too, but there's nothing I can do about it.
You know what, Marty? Sometimes I wish I'd married a butcher or a train conductor.
Well, if I lose this case, it's very possible you'll get your wish. Mr. Sibley, what's that Gailey gonna pull tomorrow?
I saw 3 ships come sailing in on Christmas Day, on Christmas Day. I saw 3 ships come sailing in on Christmas Day in the morning.
All rise for the Honorable Judge Jack Elliott.
Please be seated. Call your witness, Mr. Gailey.
The defense calls Mr. Sibley to the stand.
Do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please be seated.
Now then, Mr. Sibley, if you recognize the defendant, please tell us who he is.
Why, it's Kris Kringle, of course.
Do you believe him to be of sound mind?
Sound mind? I wish I had a dozen like him. 2 dozen.
Mr. Sibley, you are under oath. Now, do you really believe that man is the one and only Santa Claus?
Well, now, that's a delicate...
I repeat the question. Is that man Santa Claus?
Yes, in my opinion, he most certainly is.
Your Honor, there is no such person as Santa Claus, and everybody knows it.
Well, can you prove there isn't any?
I won't even try. I'll not waste this court's time with such childish nonsense. Your Honor, the prosecution requests an immediate ruling from this court. Is there or is there not a Santa Claus?
Well, now, the court will take a short recess to consider the question.
Up on the housetop, reindeer paws, out jumps good old Santa Claus.
Hello, Jack.
Why, Charlie, what brings you here all the way from Albany?
Can an old friend visit you in the chambers? And if you ask me, you never needed a friend like you do now. You prick Governor Dewey's ear, Jack, and he doesn't take kindly to this type of disruption at this time of year. That's Santa Claus you got out there, on trial for lunacy. This case is dynamite, I tell you, dynamite. And if you're coming up for re-election soon, Jack.
Oh, Charlie, do you know what happened last night? Martha brought the grandchildren over. They wouldn't kiss their grandpa. They wouldn't even talk to me.
See what I mean? If you rule there's no Santa Claus, you won't even be able to win an election for the Avon school board.
Charlie, I'm a responsible judge. How can I seriously rule that there is a Santa Claus?
Because of what happens if you don't. The kids hear about it, read about it, talk about it at school, and they don't hang up their stockings. Now what happens to all the toys that are supposed to be in those stockings? Nobody buys them. The toy manufacturers have to lay off employees. By now you got the AFL and the CIO against you. Oh, and the department stores are going to love you too. Yes, sir, Jack. And what about the Salvation Army? They got a Santa Claus in every street corner. They're taking a lot of money to help the poor, but you go ahead, Jack. You go out there and you rule there is no Santa Claus. But if you do, you can count on getting just 2 votes. Your own and the district attorney out there.
I see your point. Let's get this over with.
Down through the chimney with lots of toys, all for the little ones' Christmas joys.
All rise for the Honorable Judge Jack Elliott.
Please be seated. The question of Santa Claus seems to be largely a matter of opinion. The tradition of American jurisprudence demands a broad and unprejudiced view of such a controversial matter.
But, Your Honor...
This court, therefore, intends to keep its mind open. We shall ask for evidence on either side.
But the burden of proof clearly rests with my opponent. Can he produce any evidence to support his views?
Well, if Your Honor please, I can. Will Mortimer O'Mara please take the stand?
Who, me?
No, Mortimer O'Mara Jr. I believe he and his mother are both in the courtroom today.
Hiya, Papa.
Please raise your right hand. It's that one. Do you promise?
Oh, bailiff, I don't really think that will be necessary.
Yes, Your Honor. Please be seated.
Now, Mortimer, do you believe in Santa Claus?
Oh, I sure do. Gosh, last year he gave me a football and catcher's mitt.
Whoa, well, now what does Santa Claus look like, Mortimer?
There he is, right over there.
Your Honor, I protest.
Overruled.
Now tell me, Mortimer, why are you so sure that there's a Santa Claus?
'Cause my papa told me so. Didn't you, Papa?
Oh, thank you, Mortimer, thank you. You can go back to your mother now.
How'd I do, Pop?
You did great. Your Honor.
Don't forget, Santa Claus. I want a fire engine.
With a hose that squirts real water. And you've been a very good boy this year. You'll get it, Mortimer.
Mr. Kringle, if you don't mind.
Oh, sorry, Mr. O'Mara. Wonderful young lad you phrased there.
Thank you. Stop that! Your Honor, the state of New York concedes the existence of a Santa Claus. But in so conceding, we demand that Mr. Gailey stop representing and presenting personal opinion as evidence. I insist he submit authority to prove that Mr. Kringle here is the one and only Santa Claus.
Well, Mr. Gailey, are you prepared to show that Mr. Kringle, sitting in this courtroom, is Santa Claus on the basis of unprejudiced authority?
Well, sir, for that I need a little time.
Why not now?
Takes a while to fly in evidence from the North Pole.
Very well. Court is adjourned till tomorrow morning.
All rise.
Oh, 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 who wouldn't go? Oh, 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 who wouldn't go? Up on a housetop, click, click, click. Down through the chimney, good Saint Nick.
Now, come on, Susan dear, finish your supper.
But I can't, Mother. All those things are saying in newspapers about Mr. Kringle and Mr. Gailey.
They're having this hearing because he says he's Santa Claus.
He's so kind and nice and jolly. He's not like anyone else I know.
Quite true.
Mother, you must have been wrong. He must be Santa Claus.
You know something? I think you may be right.
Is Mr. Kringle sad now, Mother?
I'm afraid he must be.
Then, I'll write him a letter. He loves getting mail. Maybe that will cheer him up. May I have the excuse? I want to make sure it gets sent today.
Hey, Ralphie boy, how's the route?
The usual this time of year, Ed. It's nuts, completely nutso. You think I like walking around in the dark? Through rain, through snow and darkness and night? Dozens of letters to Santa Claus. Bad handwriting, stains on the envelopes, making the bag twice as heavy. Hey, here's a new one. Instead of the North Pole, this kid's got it addressed to Chris Kringle, Rochester City Courthouse.
Well, the kid's right.
Oh, huh? Oh, yeah, sure. That old guy that's on trial down there, claiming he's Santa, and the DA claims he's nuts. Hey, I got an idea.
Yeah?
How many of them Santa Claus letters we got down there at the dead letter office?
Oh, who knows? Must be 50,000. Bags and bags all over the joint. Hey, you mean...
Hey, well, Ed, why not? Wouldn't it be nice to get rid of them all? Oh boy, put on a truck for delivery first thing tomorrow. I bet we both get promoted.
Dashing through the snow, on a horse open sleigh, over the fields we go, laughing all the way.
Your Honor, since the defense has been unable to submit one shred of proof that Chris Kringle is the one and only Santa Claus, and since tonight is Christmas Eve, I ask Your Honor that this hearing be terminated without further delay.
But I do have evidence.
What evidence?
I call to the stand Chris Kringle.
Order!
Who, me?
Yo, get up there, Chris. Have a little faith in me.
Do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
I hold in my hand a letter. Chris, can you please take a look at it?
Oh, what a beautiful letter.
Oh, do you know who it's from?
Oh, of course I do.
Oh yes, Mr. Kringle? Would you care to share?
It's from Susan Walker. Oh, she believes in me. Oh, this letter means more to me than anything in the world.
Now, that letter, Your Honor, was delivered by the United States Postal Service, an official agency of the federal government. The post office was established in 1775 with none other than Benjamin Franklin as its postmaster general. The post office department is one of the largest business concerns in the world. Why, last year alone, our great postal workers delivered over 2.5 billion pieces of mail.
Your Honor, I'm sure we're all gratified that the post office is getting along so well. But what bearing has it on the sanity of that man?
My point is that the post office department is a model of efficiency, and its integrity is untarnished. Furthermore, the laws of our country make it a criminal offense to willfully misdirect mail or intentionally deliver it to the wrong party.
The state of New York is second to none in its admiration of the post office department. We're very happy to concede Mr. Gailey's...
For the record, Mr. O'Mara.
For the record. anything to get on with this case.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Your Honor, that letter just received by Mr. Kringle is positive proof that a competent agent of the United States government...
Now wait. One letter is hardly positive proof.
Well, I have further exhibits, Your Honor, but I hesitate to produce them.
Enough theatrics, Mr. Gailey. Produce the evidence.
Oh, but Your Honor...
Just put the evidence on my bench.
Oh, Your Honor, I really don't think...
But I said, just put them here on my bench.
All right, boys, bring them in. Come on, empty those mail sacks right on Judge Elliott's desk.
Now, one moment.
You come on, bring them all in. You're going to be fined for contempt of court otherwise.
Now, just a second here.
Well, do it, Your Honor. Through rain, through sleet, through courtrooms, anything, we deliver.
Mr. Gailey.
Your Honor, every one of those letters, I'm told it's in excess of some 50,000 letters, in every one of those mail sacks is addressed to Santa Claus. The post office delivered them to the Rochester City Courthouse, where he currently sits before you. It is incontrovertible. The United States Post Office recognizes Kris Kringle to be the one and only Santa Claus.
Since the United States government declares this man to be Santa Claus, this court will not dispute it. Case dismissed. And for heaven's sake, get this mail out of my courtroom.
Mr. Gailey!
Oh, Chris, I'm so glad you won.
Oh, I'm so relieved. Thank you all so very much. We're having a big Christmas party at the Brooks home tomorrow. I'd like to see you and Susan there.
Oh, that sounds lovely. We'll be there, Chris. Would you come home with us now and have dinner with us?
Tonight? Me? Are you crazy? It's Christmas Eve. Oh, I'm going to be rather busy.
We wish you a Merry Christmas, we wish you a Merry Christmas, we wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas, everyone. On behalf of the entire staff of the Brooks Home for Elderly Gentlemen here in Canandaigua, we thank you for spending part of your Christmas with us. Now, for your enjoyment, a couple of songs from our very own Dinglings.
Chestnuts roasting on an open fire, Jack Frost nipping at your nose, Yuletide carols being sung by a choir, and folks dressed up like Eskimos. Everybody knows a turkey and some mistletoe help to make the season bright. Tiny tots with their eyes all aglow will find it hard to sleep tonight. They know that Santa's on his way. He's loaded lots of toys and goodies on his sleigh, and every mother's child is gonna spy to see if reindeer really know how to fly. And so I'm offering this simple phrase to kids from 1 to 92. Although it's been said many times, many ways, Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas to you. Let your heart be light. Next year all our troubles will be out of sight. Have yourself a merry little Christmas. Make the Yuletide gay. Next year all our troubles will be miles away. Once again as in olden days, happy golden days of yore. Faithful friends who are dear to us will be near to us once more. Someday soon we all will be together. fates allow. Until then, we'll have to muddle through somehow. So have yourself a merry little Christmas now.
Alfred, look who came all the way out here just for our Christmas party.
It's Mr. Sibley.
And Mr. McCurdy, too.
Merry Christmas, Chris. Thank you for making this a truly special Christmas.
You reminded us, both of us, of the meaning of the season.
Oh, thank you very much, gentlemen. And thanks for making the trip. But if you excuse me, there's someone I must speak to before they go. So forgive me, will you?
Absolutely.
Sure.
Say, you want to go to lunch?
Absolutely. Nick Tahoe's?
Yeah.
But Susie, darling, you have so many presents.
Not the one I wanted. Not the one I asked Mr. Kringle for.
Well, what was it?
It doesn't matter. I knew I wouldn't get it. But I thought he'd at least tell me why.
Susie, I tried my best.
You couldn't get it because you're not really Santa Claus.
Susan!
Just a nice old man with whiskers, like Mother said.
But I was wrong when I told you that. You must believe in Mr. Kringle and keep right on doing it. You must have faith in him.
But that doesn't make sense, Mother.
Faith is believing in things when common sense tells you not to.
What?
I mean, just because things don't turn out the way you want them to in the first time, you still gotta believe in people. I found that out when...
Oh, hello, Doris.
Oh, Fred.
Mr. Gately, Mr. Gately.
Oh, Merry Christmas, Susie.
Gosh, you just got here and we're ready to leave.
Oh, I've already been here a few minutes. If you're ready to leave, I'll drive you home if you like.
Well, yes, I think we both like that very much.
Before you go, here's a map I made for you. Oh, you'll miss a lot of traffic. About 4 miles south, you will see Geneseo Avenue. Now that's the street you want. Geneseo Avenue.
Oh, well, thanks, Chris. Hey, and Merry Christmas.
Oh, Merry Christmas to you, Fred. And to you, Doris. And to you, my dear Susan.
I believe in Mr. Kringle. I do. I believe in Mr. Kringle. It's silly, I suppose, but I guess I do.
I don't understand it, Fred. The map Chris gave us definitely says Geneseo Avenue. We've been on Geneseo Avenue now for...
Stop the car! Oh, stop the car, please!
Susie, what is it, darling? What's the matter?
There it is, the house,
Susie!
What in the world? She's running into that house. Well, at least there's no one home. It's brand new, just been built. The sign out front says, for sale. What on earth is that child up to?
Susie! Hey, Susie!
Here I am, upstairs.
You come down here right now. You know you shouldn't be running around in other people's houses. That's strange.
I'll say.
No. I mean this house. I've seen this house somewhere. I know I have. Maybe in a magazine or...
Mother, it's our house. It's the one I asked him for, Mr. Kringle.
Mr. Kringle?
I know it is. Oh, you were right, Mom. You were right.
Susie?
Mother told me that if things don't turn out the way you want them to at first, you've still got to believe, and I kept on believing. And you were right, Mom.
Now, where are you going?
In the back to see if there's a swing. Oh, there is one. There is.
You told her that about believing?
Well, you told me, Fred.
The sign outside, for sale, huh? Well, we can't let her down, can we?
I never really doubted you. It was just my silly common sense.
But it even makes sense to believe in me now. I am a pretty darn good lawyer. I take a little old man and legally prove to the world that he is Santa Claus. Now you know that couldn't be the easiest.
Fred?
Well, what's the matter?
There, in the corner by the fireplace.
Oh, no.
It can't be.
A cane. That's Chris's cane. There couldn't be two canes like this one anywhere in the world.
Silver handle and all.
Well, we'll make sure the chimney's clear for him next Christmas.
Ho, ho, ho!
This concludes this installment of WBRC's Jingle Bell Hour and tonight's performance of Miracle on 34th Street, brought to you by Featured Media.
Reaching readers far and near, Featured Media is here. Building ties both real and true, we can do it all for you. Featured Media, 2268111.
Be sure to tune in next week for our presentation of One Crazy New Year's Eve in Ionia. We wish you the happiest holiday to you and yours, and thank you.